Most people think that logo design starts from Illustrator, but the truth is it doesn't. It starts even before opening any design tool. And today I'm going to walk you through my logo design process step by step. And if you're a designer that is struggling with client revisions and feedback, this process is going to save you a lot of time and stress. This is exactly how I onboard and design logos for clients. Now, the first step is inquiry. Once I get an inquiry from either social media or via email, the first thing I do is to get the client or lead to book a discovery call immediately. Now, why is this important? This call is important not just to understand the project, but also to understand the client, to see if our values align and if we can actually work together. To achieve this, I usually send my calendar to the prospective lead or client, and I usually use cow.com. And what's unique about this is I actually have a pre-qualification form that the client has to fill before he can access the calendar. Through that form, I'm able to have an idea of what service the client is interested in and their budget range. Now, once this discovery call is booked and the call is on, what I try to do during the call is majorly listen. Listen to what the client or lead actually want, their goals, and most importantly, their vibe, to check whether we are actually in alignment. Because for a project to be successful, both the designer and the client actually have to be on the same page. And yes, during this call, toward the end, I usually like to talk about money. Yes, I know a lot of you might think that you should wait later for you to start discussing about money, but during the discovery call toward the end, I usually tell the client or ask the client their budget and actually get a figure out of them, so that when I send over a proposal, they actually have an idea of what amount would be on that proposal. And the reason I started doing this is because there are a lot of times where I jump on discovery calls and then I don't talk about budgets and I spend time coming up with a proposal, sending it over just to get ghosted. So right now during discovery call, I make sure that both I and the client already have an understanding when it comes to how much this project is going to be. So when they see a figure from me in my proposal, they're not surprised. So now once the discovery call is completed and I have an understanding of the project, the second step I do is to send over a proposal, an invoice, and then a questionnaire. And in my proposal, I actually highlight the goal of the project, the outcome, the possible timeline. Depending on what the client wants, I can offer different options. For example, a logo design package, a visual identity package, or a full brand strategy plus visual identity package with the pricing attached to each of them. And now once they've chosen an option, the next thing I do is to send over an invoice. Once the invoice is paid, I send over a questionnaire to document everything that we've discussed. In the questionnaire, I ask questions like the name of the brand. We go over the goals of the project once more, ask things like the story behind the brand, what they hope to achieve, how they describe their brand, get all this down in writings. And with this, I can use that to come up with a brief for the project. Now, once I send over a proposal, it has been accepted, the invoice has been paid, and the questionnaire is filled, the third step is research and strategy. Now, this phase depends on the scope of the project. If it is a full brand identity project, there I start working on the brand voice, the brand strategy, and brand positioning. And if it's strictly just a logo design project, I just move toward the fourth step, which is moodboarding. Now, the moodboard helps me to understand the client's taste. I usually include typography, logo styles, and general design direction in the moodboard. I don't focus too much on colors at this stage, but I just want to see what type of style that the client would like or would want for their project. And this helps the client to know what they are expecting at the end of the design project. I usually come up with two moodboards with two different directions. And once I send it over to a client, I usually jump on a call to try and explain what this two direction actually means for their brand or their business. And now once they pick a particular direction or mood board, I can move to the fifth step, which is concept development. Now, in some cases, the client can actually have their own mood board. If that's the case, you might not need to actually come up with a mood board yourself. They might already have maybe like a Pinterest board of the type of style or design that they want. You can just work with that instead. But in cases where they do not have any direction, you have to come up with a mood board so the client knows what they are expecting at the end of the project. Now, moving on to the fifth step, which is the most difficult step, it is actually concept development. Once there's an approved direction, it is now time to start brainstorming different concepts. I go back to the questionnaire, the transcript from the discovery call I've had with the client, and everything general that the clients have said. I do different exercises to try and brainstorm ideas. For example, I do word mapping exercises to try and find out different words that can be associated with the brand that I can actually use to represent the brand as a logo. And honestly, this is actually the most difficult part of this entire process. This is where you sketch bad ideas, cliche ideas, awkward ideas, and even start questioning your entire design career. And let's say you finally come up with an idea and you've discovered that another brand or company is using it. That can be very painful and annoying. And then you have to go back again and again until you find something that is unique that you can actually use for your client's business. And when that finally clicks, all the doubt disappears and you finally feel relieved that yes, I'm actually a great designer. So after coming up with a concept, what next to do is to present this concept to the client, which brings us to step 6, which is concept presentation. So most times I usually present one solid concept to the client. I do this to reduce any form of decision fatigue. In some cases, when I've come up with two strong concepts, then I can present both to the client and maybe have them choose. But most times I usually do not present more than 2 options to avoid decision fatigue with the client. And so during this concept presentation, I explain the entire idea behind the concept I came up with, tell the story behind it, and answer any questions that the client might have about the concept I come up with. And yes, most times when I actually present concepts to a client, I do so in black and white. And the reason for that is so the client can focus solely on the concept rather than how it appears when it comes to colors. So they focus mainly on the concepts that they are seeing in front of them in plain black and white without any bias when it comes to colors. So once the concept is approved, your work is actually 80% done as a logo designer. The next step is to actually add the colors and come up with the typography, which brings us to step 7, colors and typography. So here it's pretty straightforward. You do from your research, you already have an idea of the color palettes that would be perfect for your client's industry. You use that to refine the concept that the client has chosen, and then explore different font options that they can use for their business or their brand. And then you put everything in a final logo presentation and send it over to your clients. So once this has been approved, the client is cool with the colors and the font exploration that you provided, it now brings us to the final step in our logo design process, which is final files and handing off. So here you export all the logo design files, including all the formats that you know your clients would need: JPEG, PNG, SVG, and even Illustrator files, PDF, everything. You export them and send it over to your client. You also need to export print ready and digital ready files for your client, and a simple style sheet so they can know how the colors and fonts can be paired and used for their business. And yeah, that's it guys. That's the entire logo design process step by step that I follow, that, trust me, has helped me to reduce any form of revision and constant back and forth with clients. Now, if this is helpful to you, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, and you can also let me know in the comments which part of this logo design process that you struggle with. And with that, see you guys in the next one.